Hello, hello, hello. Becky here. I'm just making sure everyone is in. For the event, obviously, I've been sent some amazing questions from multiple different people that I'll go through. If you want to ask me any questions at any point, please just put them in the chat box that should be on your screen, and I will get around to those for definite. So if you ever think of anything, please put it in. I'm an open book and I'm willing to answer any questions that you guys may have. I thought I'd start with kind of a really nice one that's kind of a nice, easy question, which was there a teacher that inspired me to fulfill my potential? And I was lucky enough that I had brilliant swim teachers, but I also had a really, really supportive school as well. I didn't go to a sports school or anything like that. Mine was just my local school in Mansfield. But I had a brilliant swim teacher. She was so enthusiastic. She was just absolutely brilliant. And it's kind of where my love of the sports really started. And then as I kind of got a bit older and I moved into a coach and a club environment, again, I was lucky enough to have brilliant coaches. And with school, obviously, as you guys can imagine, my schoolwork was very difficult. I was away training a lot. I was on camps, going to different competitions all the time. So it was kind of a really tough balance to manage the schoolwork as well as my swimming, especially because I lived about 45 minutes away from the pool. So it was a lot of traveling as well. If you hear any weird noises, it's because I'm having a house extension. I've got work going on at my house. So that's what you can hear in the background. But yeah, my school teachers were absolutely brilliant. They understood if I was going away, and they used to give me my homework to take away with. They used to help me where they possibly could by sending me extra things that I might find useful. Obviously, Google and computers weren't quite what it was when I was growing up, kind of through those years, but I certainly made sure that I had that kind of support there. The next question was, what advice can you give to teachers in these unusual times to encourage and inspire children within sport? And I recognise right now must be a completely unknown, challenging period. I think it's one of those, obviously lockdown, we were all away from school, so that was a huge challenge to kind of manage that, doing some homeschooling and kind of all that sort of stuff. But obviously then started back school. And I'm sure things are very, very different. My sister's actually a teacher, and I hear from her how different it is now because they have to clean down the classrooms in between each lesson and the one-way systems, and there's kind of a lot more to it than just the teaching stuff now. But obviously the safety of everyone is really, really important and top priority. But it's also very difficult because I think every school has kind of done their own things. Some schools, they've got kind of sports clubs back, some haven't at all as well. So it's one of those that they have PE and probably anything external. If they've gone to a club, I know swimming clubs are back and things like that. Obviously, we're in a period of time now where they could be shut down again. But I think it's been one of those that either you kind of get two different types of people, don't you? You kind of get the kids and the children that have been really inspired through this time, and they're itching to get back in. They just want to get back to their sport and they just want to get back involved because they've really missed it. And then I do think that you've probably got the kids on the other side, which is probably the more difficult side, which is I've been off for a long time, struggling to kind of get back into it and definitely finding that motivation. And I think it's about thinking outside the box a lot now, offering as much support as possible. And even away from sport, I think it's one of those that you just want to support. I think everyone's going through these challenges together and recognizing them as well. I think it's okay to accept this is a bit different, this is new, and kind of keeping those conversations open and keep that conversation flowing all the time, taking that couple of minutes just to check in with everyone first, and then obviously get on with PE or whatever sports club it is that you're doing. But definitely trying to engage those that have been out of routine. I can imagine to be quite difficult, but I've really enjoyed watching some of the past things. I found that really helpful. If I'm having a bit of a low day or kind of a week where I'm not really motivated, I've been watching old sporting footage, whether it's the Olympic rewind stuff or anything else that's been on telly, and I found that really inspirational and really motivational to watch. So there's loads of things out there like that can kind of get kind of the buzz back again that I think we're all missing from sport. Another question was, how do we best handle the current situation where some sports are restricted due to COVID, and how can we keep the kids engaged? So very, very similar to the last question. I think it's extremely difficult depending on your sport. Obviously swimming, the pools opened back up end of July. And obviously now, depending on your area, those might get shut down again. I know outdoor sports and things like that are still okay, and football and things, as long as there's spectators and outdoors and everything like that. And I think you've just kind of got to be really flexible and adaptable. If you kind of have to switch something up that week, then just kind of make sure that you kind of keep in that. I think we can't be naive in these times, can we? I think it's one of those that if you're not in that strict lockdown, you might get put there any time, because there is such this unknown territory. So I think trying to be as flexible and adaptable as possible and kind of work around it. If the weather's bad, well, what can we do instead? Let's all get back on the computer and do something from home, or doing different drills, or doing things that are kind of outside their sport, but they can still stay active. I've seen loads of people around me just out running, or kind of going to the park and doing different workouts that have got nothing to do with running or clubs or anything like that, but that's just how they've adapted their workout, so they can still come together as a community, as that's what sport is. It's a real community and that hub feel. So trying to just do those as much as possible. What are my memories from school, both positive and negative? I don't know whether to start with the positive or the negative first. The positive one was that I did have quite a supportive school. It was an art and drama school, but actually the fact that I did sport, my parents went in, they spoke to the head teacher. They kind of allowed that flexibility there, because we kept them communications going. I think you've got to work, parents and the school, they've got to work together, and you've got to kind of keep that communication going all the time. Well, that really helped me anyway, manage my swimming and kind of doing all of those. And I did love school. I think it was one of those, I wasn't necessarily as good at school as like my two older sisters were absolutely brilliant. And being the baby, I think that was the negative, because everyone was like, oh, another Adlington by the time I came along, and everyone was like, oh, she's not quite as academic. So I think living up to my sister's expectations and pressures were very difficult, because them two were so academic and so brilliant, whereas I kind of wasn't the same. I did well in school and I passed everything, but it wasn't quite the same level. My passion was sports rather than in the classroom, but I worked hard as I could. I probably talked a little bit too much, but I did enjoy that community. I did enjoy being around my friends, doing different things as well, playing netball at school, doing cross country running. I liked those. I used to love maths as well, and textiles and things like that. So I really enjoyed doing different stuff outside of sport as well, and doing different sports that I wouldn't usually do, because I was just always swimming outside of school. So that was good as well. How can we create more opportunities for our younger generation? And I think that's something that probably is a little bit difficult right now, because the opportunity is, it's kind of very hard to plan those. No events and stuff like that are happening now, so it's probably very, very difficult. But outside of COVID, and hopefully once we kind of get back to a bit of more normality, I think the brilliant thing now is, and you will probably know this, when I was growing up, it was a case of I had the option to do ballet, running or swimming. They were like pretty much my only three options. So it's amazing now that there is so many different opportunities for kids, and not just within sport. There's so many different clubs out there, whether it's drama, music, art, and I think that is the amazing thing. And obviously you need that parent commitment. I do think there is a real fine balance between parents and school. I always have this battle with Learn to Swim, because obviously Learn to Swim is on the national curriculum, but obviously it's not measured by Ofsted, and not every school has access to a pool. And it's one of those that people go, well, it's the school's responsibility, and then they go, well, it's the parents. And I actually think it's a real balance of both. And obviously if there is a pool local and that it is achievable to get some swimming in, then of course, like, I would want the school to be able to take that up. But it's not always the case. Some schools are like 20 miles away from a pool, and it's just not going to be possible. So you do need that parent kind of influence as well. You need that parent commitment to try different things. And I think that's where it's really great now, because you go to these parents' evenings and you kind of get the feedback that go, actually, your daughter or son's really good at this. And then that could be something that they could explore away from school as well, which I think does create those opportunities, because there are so many different clubs out there for all different sorts of things. It's just sometimes you don't know where to start because there's too many. So with the school and the parents' communication, you might be able to find that thing that that child is good at and really confident at. I can see some questions are coming in, so I'll try and answer some of them as I go along as well. Do you think children are more interested in sport following the COVID situation, and how important do you think it is to encourage this? I think I've seen a real kind of balance, to be honest. I think people really miss sports that were into sports, but I think you have probably, because of COVID, missed out on people that probably would have maybe tried something, but they've kind of lost their window of opportunity now. So I think there's probably a massive shift with those that could have potentially gone into sport a little bit more, that they kind of haven't touched that base, and it's going to be very difficult to get them into sport because of all the venues and facilities and everything that is happening. But I think the ones that were interested in sport, I think, have kept that. I think there's been so much out there online. I mean, I, as a parent, have done that Joe Wicks, the PE lessons in the morning, and all the different other ones as well. So I think it's one of those that you've tried where possible to kind of, even though sometimes it's just been more about fitness than it has been sport, I think there's definitely been a lot more engagement away from facilities. But I think people are missing that team element, definitely, because that's what it's all about. I think it's all about your teammates, for starters, and building on those relationships and those friendships, but also like the community, the wider community of the sport that you feel, and being part of something. I think that gives you such a massive amount of confidence. And I do worry that those kids that haven't had that, I wonder how their confidence is, and they've probably lost a lot of confidence, and confidence takes a long time to get back. So I worry about confidence levels. Any mental health tips from your sporting experience to give to the kids to keep going through dark times? I used to get very, very nervous. I was a very nervous racer. I used to feel sick. I used to feel like I was going to pass out. I really struggled with the nerves. Sometimes I let those nerves get the better of me as well. I have had competitions where I haven't done as well as expected, or I could have done, because I've let the nerves take over. It took a long time for me to realize nerves are a good thing. It shows that I care. It shows that I'm really passionate about it and I want to do well. I'd be more worried if I wasn't nervous at all. But I think it is that fine balance. And I think that came with confidence. As I got older and I became more confident in my sport, the nerves I was able to manage a lot more. But that kind of stuff, it's really, really important to have somebody to talk to. I think for any one that's anything, not just in sport, but anything kind of having somebody to touch base with. Sometimes I recognize it's very hard for a teacher or a coach when they have 25, 30 different kids going off to touch base with every single one of them and check in. It's very, very difficult. So sometimes it's about just looking at body language, things like that, how they are engaging in the group, and kind of just watching for those signs, isn't it? But that's very difficult as a teacher or a coach, and then kind of talking to the parents and keeping that conversation open if you do see something that you are a bit worried about. But I think it's really important for kids as well to talk to each other. I think that's really important and part of team building, to say what people want to achieve, what are their goals, but also what are they scared of. We used to do that. We used to sit down, we used to write 3 things that were our short-term goals, 3 things that we wanted to work on or that we were worried about. And we used to chat about them openly with each other, not just the coach, but as a team, because then you end up realizing we're all in the same boat, and pretty much most people have the same similar fears. And it's exactly the same with mental health. They will all be going through very, very similar things. And sometimes, especially for kids, they just don't know how to start that conversation. And I think starting that conversation and normalizing that conversation is really, really huge. It doesn't need to be a big sit down thing if it's about mental health. I think people think it needs to be this really serious, intense, deep conversation, whereas actually it doesn't. We need to normalize the conversation around it and just make it really, really common that people would openly say, oh, I'm tired today, or I'm a bit sluggish. So why not say, I'm just not feeling it today, or I'm a bit nervous, or I'm a bit anxious, or kind of feeling a bit down. We need to kind of get used to saying those things a little bit more. Go back to some of the questions on here. What were there any obstacles that you faced in pursuing becoming an Olympic swimmer? There was many obstacles. It was one of those that trying to be the best at anything is always going to be a challenge. Time management was always difficult because we lived about 45 minutes from the pool, so I was spending about 3 hours a day just in the car traveling. Used to have to get up at 4:30 in the morning. So again, very, very difficult tiredness wise, but also managing everything, because my day used to be get up at 4:30, drive 45 minutes, do 2 hours swimming, drive straight from the pool to school, dry my hair with the air vents in the car, eat my cereal out of a Tupperware box, all that sort of stuff, finish any last minute homework while mum's going over the bumps and whatever, go to school. And then mum used to pick me up straight from school, drop my sisters back off at home, grab a snack, quickly get changed, grab my swimming bag again, and then straight back to the pool for another 2 hours. And this was my every single day. And then at weekends I was spent competing as well. So it was very, very intense. And it was a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure. Sport, anything is, not just sport, but it is dealing with that, but also remembering it's fun as well. I think that's the main thing in sport, remembering to always have fun. And my coach did a really good job of that, and making sure, and so did my parents as well, always just kind of like little treats or little fun things at the end of a tough day or a weekend, making sure that reward's always there, even if it's not a material thing or money or food or whatever. It can just be a simple reward thing of, well done, you did absolutely amazing. That kind of praise was really important for me, because that's how I developed my confidence and everything else. And obviously for my parents, it was a huge task. My parents had to be my funding, my taxi drivers, my nutritionists, my physios, my absolute everything. So that was definitely a challenge on the family. And it's not always easy for families, especially the finances. It's being part of anything isn't cheap, is it? So that always took its toll as well. What do you think the main attributes needed are to become an Olympic champion? I think you need to be passionate and driven. I think you've got to love what you do, because you dedicate so much time and effort and hard work. I mean, there was times where I sat in the changing rooms and cried because I was in so much pain. You push your body to the limit every single day. So you've got to love what you do, and that is kind of fundamental. And you've got to want to succeed as well. Even if you love a sport, if you don't kind of have that competitive edge and you don't have the desire to better yourself or get faster or kind of have that drive, well, then sport should just be something that is in your own time rather than an elite level. So luckily I had all of that. You've got to be really dedicated and disciplined, and sport now isn't just a case of, well, you've got to be talented. It's about that whole package, isn't it? Mentally tough as well as physically, but also organization as well. Like I was on camps from 12 years old without my mum and dad, making sure that I had everything that I needed, could pack my own swim bag, be a bit more independent, doing drugs whereabouts things as well, making sure that that's all up to date, organizing your diary and calendars for competitions and entries. You kind of have to have them skills as well. Know that routine inside and out, not just kind of, well, I can swim and that's it. You've kind of got to have the rest of it to go with it. And definitely just being a good team player as well. I think that's really important. It kind of, you use your teammates because you'll need them and they'll need you. So I think it's really important to kind of build those relationships and have that really good team support and being around like-minded people. And I think it's really important that you surround yourself with a great support network, and not just by coaches and who your staff are in that sense, as in physios and gym conditioning guys and teachers, but it's also about your friends and your family and who you're around as well. Another one from the chat box. Will the closure of sports centres and sites have a long-lasting impact on the progression of young people aiming to play sport at an elite level? I think we're at the point now, aren't we, that I think at the start of lockdown, it was only meant to be, 3 weeks? And then it kind of drastically obviously shifted to months, and then places started to open back up in the summer. I think now we're going in to kind of a really tough period, because in the summer, it was a lot easier to do stuff outside. You wanted to be outside a lot more because the weather was nice and it was nice and light and things. Whereas I think now it's going to be really tough because the evenings are darker, it's colder, it's wetter, and it's kind of really hard to do those things outdoor that we did during the first lockdown. And now, as we see, we will see obviously more and more cities go into that tier 3 stage. It's going to be extremely difficult. I think it's one of those that to be at the right time. I think timing is going to be key, because I think if you're kind of at that elite level, a lot of the elite stuff has stayed open, and the elite teams are back. So that is really good, because a lot of people have just moved to a specific centre that is going to be open. Excuse me. Or the really, really young generation, like my daughter, she's 5, I think are going to be okay, because there is still a long amount of period of time to be able to get involved in different sports and learn things. I think for that middle age group, between kind of being a child, the kind of the teenage years, if you like, that middle bit, I think they are going to really miss out. And it's going to, of course, it's going to have a lasting effect. You're going to have missed that opportunity for people that could have possibly got involved that probably won't now. And then also the people that kind of were like, in and ahhing, should I carry on? Should I not? You'll probably just see that drop off as well. So of course, participation figures are going to drop off. And I also think with the venues closing, unfortunately, I have seen a lot of venues having to permanently close because they just can't afford to stay open. And I think that's going to be a sad thing. And that is obviously going to have a lasting impact, whether COVID becomes a bit more manageable or not, because of obviously their venues not being there anymore. So that's obviously going to be a very, very tough challenge. And especially for that kind of grassroots level of sport, you need that funding, that money there coming in is what keeps them going, and that hasn't been there. So that's going to really, really suffer. Our swimming lessons have been off since March. Are there any tips, activities to keep children swim able during those closures? From Caroline, thank you for your question. And it's such a shame when some of the pools haven't opened up. I do know that a lot of them are, but a lot of them are still closed. So every situation is different. Trying to just keep them kind of engaged in that kind of the fear side, I think, is really important. So making sure, like, if they're really young, engaging in, obviously making sure we've had the paddling pool out in the summer and all that sort of stuff. We're not going to have that again. But that's how I helped with my daughter. For the older generation, I think looking back over some of the swimming things, kind of getting them still involved in the sport. The Olympic rewind shows that I mentioned, swimming's actually coming back on telly because there is a competition called International Swimming League, which is actually starting next weekend. So that's going to be on Eurosport and on the red button on the BBC as well. So anyone that is older and into swimming from a competition point of view, I think seeing it back on telly and having that visibility there is going to be really important for those kids. But it is extremely difficult. I know we've done loads of things as my Learn to Swim business that's just videos engaging kids, getting them doing some things that are swimming technique based but on land, and trying to just make some fun workouts that will transfer over to kind of being in water. But it's very, very tough, isn't it? And it's kind of very tough as well because we just don't know when the venues are going to fully open back. And even if they do open back, they might close again. So it's a very uncertain time. So I do really feel for people in that sense. Some more of the questions on here. What can we do within the education setting to get the best out of our children? And I think this is a really difficult one, isn't it? Because every single person not just children, every single person learns in a different way. Every single person has different interests and different strengths and weaknesses. So I can understand it's very difficult for the teachers because you just simply can't accommodate for every single person in that class or that setting. So very difficult. But that's what I think schools are now trying to do, is that yes, you might not like maths, but they can support you and help you through it, and then the things that you do strive in or really like, whether it's sport or art or drama, you'll find a lot more confidence from that and you'll love doing them. So I think it's all about that balance, isn't it? And recognizing maybe the stuff that are their strengths and weaknesses and how they can work around that, and things that they can take away from school. Excuse me. I think is one of those that it has got to be very powerful and very helpful. I think, again, the fact that kids have so much available to them now, whether it's after school clubs, activities, normally events going on, whether it's shows, competitions, or whatever it is they're going to, I think it's brilliant that they have so much exposed to them. I almost think in some ways it's probably too much, that how can the kids possibly choose to just focus on one or two things when there is so much out there, and you end up enjoying it, and friendship groups and who your little clique is and who your little mates are must take over. I'm just going to grab some water. Excuse me. Paul has just said, what's next for you, Rebecca? Thank you for giving your time. Well, you're more than welcome. And I'm 20 weeks pregnant, so I'm having a little one next year. I run my own learn to swim program as well, which was back up and running in August. Obviously, is still continuing to go, apart from in Liverpool, where we've had to shut down, obviously because of tier 3, and obviously, excuse me, might impact other cities now if they enter tier 3. But hopefully we can stay open as much as possible, because it is teaching kids a really fundamental life skill. And obviously chlorine and being in the water is a sanitized environment for the children. So fingers crossed. Sorry. And I'm hoping as well, just as I'm probably all of you are, that the Olympics carry on and go ahead next year. Back doing some of the TV stuff and the commentary of the swimming as well, which would be amazing. Obviously, I know some elite sport is back, but it would be nice to kind of get a lot of the others back on as well. I'll just see if I've got any more questions on here. How did you cope with lockdown? Excuse me. And did you achieve anything during this period? Excuse me. Oh, frog in my throat. Sorry. Lockdown was obviously a challenge, as it was for many different people. Carried on working. So did my partner. Had obviously my daughter Summer 5, and trying to do things and do a bit of homeschooling with her at least and stuff. But we managed it, and I actually really loved having the time with her. I think a lot of parents enjoyed having that time, because I just thought to myself, I never had this time with my mum and dad. So it was really nice we got that time to bond. There was certain things that kind of we wanted to do, whether it was house stuff. I think everyone's painted their house about 4 times. I really wanted to teach Summer how to ride a bike, and we completed that. So absolutely brilliant that she learned to ride a bike, and just kind of continued. And it was amazing once the pools opened back up, like I've said, to be able to do that, to kind of get the kids back in the water. And that was something that was really important. excuse me. Last question on here was, other than swimming, do you have any other passions in life, and what are your main hobbies outside of the world of sport? And for me, I love cooking. I've got 2 little dogs. I love kind of just going on dog walks, being as active as possible, going out for a walk. I think we've all enjoyed going on walks a lot more and everything. So that's been one of those that we've got into more than ever. I think we've all baked one too many banana breads, haven't we? And been outside as much as possible during this time. So thank you so much for your questions. I don't think there's any more on here. Let me just check. No, I think I've answered them all. Oh, thank you. A couple of people just saying thank you. So thank you to you guys. I've absolutely loved the questions that obviously were previously sent, but also the questions that you've put in today. So thank you so much. Take care. Please stay safe during this time as well. And just, I think teachers are absolutely incredible. So keep doing what you're doing, as you guys don't have an easy job. So thank you so much. And all of you, take care.